everyone, I'm here with my daily video, and today I thought that we would take a look at my experimental bullet journal. I started kind of keeping a bullet journal, I don't know, maybe like last week or the week before, and I don't do it on the daily. I just do it kind of sometimes to just think visually a little bit, or just to document things that I might be trying to even prep here for my daily videos. And so what I decided to do for I guess like today's kind of bullet journal entry, and I can't show you all of them because some of the stuff has to do with work stuff. That's actually what I have been doing all day long today, which is why this daily video is going up so late. But just kind of for me, having conversations with others in the planner community and people leaving really great comments and asking questions and things, people have asked me about different approaches to planning, or different planner insert kind of styles and page layouts. So I thought that I would do a little bit of an infographic. An infographic basically presents information in a visual sort of a way, almost like a doodle or kind of a drawing. So I have prepared, I've drawn up, hand-drawn, an infographic for you that talks a little bit about different styles that you can do in terms of planning. It doesn't necessarily talk about sizes, but it talks more about the structure of a planner insert or a planner page. The reason why I'm doing this is because some people have asked, well, should I use a daily planner? Should I use a weekly planner? Should I use just a to-do list? Like, they've asked me what my kind of perspective is in terms of what has been helpful for me. So I've been doing planning for quite a while, and I've been making daily videos, and then I've been doing planner videos for a while, but even before I was posting videos, I was still doing planning. So I thought I would share with you today, in infographic bullet journal style, some things that I have kind of picked up and just understand about planning, and maybe it will be helpful to you because you are in a rut maybe when it comes to your planning, or you're trying to set up a new planner, or you're just brand new to planning, and so this can be a little bit of just like planner inserts kind of 101. So I don't have any examples to show you, and that can come kind of in later videos, but this is just a cursory overview of different types of planner page layouts that you can consider when you're kind of building your planner, kind of putting it together. And it gives you some pros and cons as much as it just gives you some just things to think about. So if you are interested in seeing the infographic that I drew up in my bullet journal, or you would like to just learn about the different types of planner inserts that I have either designed myself and used, or that I have seen just kind of like amongst and amidst the planner community, then I invite you to stick around for the video, and we will, nerd out on planner stuff. So let's go ahead and watch the video. Okay, so what we're looking at here is we're looking at a bit of a double page spread of, like I said, this is just a composition book, graph style composition book, and this is just pen and ink. I wanted to include actual like kind of pictures of some of the different ways that I have seen people plan, and the ways that I've planned before. Different approaches, I guess you could say, to planning, but I kind of ran out of time. I'm at the tail end of my workday today, and I'm really tired, and so I, of course, didn't want to, I didn't want to kind of wimp out on my daily video, but I thought it would be best to present this in a visual sort of a way, so that as I am kind of like discussing things with you all, then you could kind of read my notes. So we're going to start up here in this corner, and then we're going to go clockwise to the right around, and we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about just the different approaches that I've seen, and then the approaches to planning, and then just as much as they're informed by the different styles of inserts, like the way a page is kind of sectioned off in order for it to be used for planning in any number of ways. So one approach that I've seen people take is I've seen people do planner stamping. And I myself have done planner stamping. I've done some kind of silly and just kind of fun plan with me videos with stamping. One of the things of stamping is that it does require real time and physical space because you need to store your tools. So like your ink pads and your actual stamps, so that's wood mount stamps or acrylic block stamps. So that's not always a positive thing when it comes to stamping, just because it can become very easily overwhelming. It's a slippery slope when it comes to planning, like getting more sets, getting more ink pads. So the initial startup cost, and I have that as like a negative, it can be a lot to get started in planner stamping. But Michaels and Hobby Lobby, they now are selling clear stamp sets, and so you can use your 40 or 50% off coupons for that. So that can help offset the cost of just getting started with stamping. The thing about stamping, though, in your planner is it can actually be really fun because it feels like you're creating because, well, you are creating. So that's a real positive thing. The other thing is once you have your stamps, you have them for, forever. Like you don't run out of stamps because you have them to make a mark on the page, and then you can just reuse them as much as you want. So unlike planner stickers, you don't necessarily run out of planner stamps. You might get tired of them and want to get different ones, but planner stamps, once you make the investment to have them with that initial cost that can be a little bit of a drawback, you'll have them forever. Another drawback is that there can be a real learning curve when it comes to stamping, so it can be very frustrating. When you first get started with stamping, you have in your mind of what you want your planner pages to look like, and as you're learning how to use the stamps, just all of the different intricacies and just best practices, establishing yourself, that can be frustrating, and then it can just kind of feel like all of the time and the money that you've invested in trying to get started with stamping, it can feel a little bit like a sunk cost. But if you just stick with it, then the learning curve isn't so painful, and you can actually get to the point where it does feel fun and feel like you're creating. So the next approach is one that I very commonly use and I always talk about, which is an approach that's called like functional planning. Now I like to do something that I call fashionable and functional planning, which basically means that I use stickers and washi tape, and I have that as a little bit of like a box with a like a line drawn as a way to say like this is neither here nor there. Like it's just a something. It's like a point to be made. So the thing about functional planning is you can do like pretty planning, as I've also seen people call it. Annie Smith, I think is her last name, and she has a really great YouTube channel. I will link that in the description of this video. She does some really awesome functional planning plan with me's. If you have never watched any of her videos, and she has a great Instagram feed as well. She takes pictures of her planner pages and just does an awesome job instructionally and just kind of like showing great examples about how to do functional planning in a pretty way. But similar enough to like how she does it, I use stickers and washi tape just like she does, and so functional planning doesn't have to be totally completely cut and dry. It doesn't have to be boring. And it can definitely feel like you're designing and creating because you're using stickers and washi tape. You can do it by doing coordinated color palettes. You can get very, very simple sorts of just kind of die cut stickers and things and just color code things. There can be a real learning curve though, as it has to do with just like learning how to do the most functional planning for yourself. So that can be very frustrating. But just like with planner stamping, if you stick with it, then you'll find that even with that learning curve, the frustration will gradually kind of quiet itself, and you'll kind of sink into a good rhythm for yourself, and it won't be nearly so like much of a labor of love, and it'll become something that maybe you love. Like you'll learn to kind of nerd out and love planning as much as so many people in the planner community for there to even be a planner community. A positive thing about functional planning is it's usually very easily understood and easy to read because there's not a whole lot of decorative elements on the page that distract your eye or that just kind of like visually kind of clutter the space. So that is a real positive to functional planning. The next one that I found, and these are names that I don't know that these are actual real names. This is just kind of a way that I kind of summed it up to have a little bit of a title, but I call it estimated and projected. And this is a very fluid and flexible style of planning, almost like having like a to-do list. So this is very DIY, where you literally would just have like a notepad or just like a plain old notebook, and you can write a little bit of a bulleted list or a checklist, and just write down what your general goal is for the day or just your general tasks. Now, the only thing with this sort of thing is that you can really set yourself up for disappointment if you're not realistic, because it's easy to just start writing a list and fill up a page and then have a whole page of stuff to do, and that's not necessarily the most realistic all the time for doing planning, just because it can be hard to get through an entire list of things day in and day out. There's some real checks and balances there, meaning you set goals for yourself, you can see them, they're written, so you can go through page after page and say, okay, so I got this, I got that. Like, you can see kind of where you met your goals or like achieved kind of your task management or not, but you can really set yourself up for disappointment if you're not realistic and you have these huge gigantic lists that just go on and on page after page. So that's why I call this kind of estimated and projected. Like, you're projecting what you want to do and you're estimating what you can do. But you got to be realistic, otherwise you can really kind of disappoint yourself and discourage yourself, and then convince yourself that planning is not something that you should do, which isn't necessarily the case. It just might be that you need to kind of adjust your approach to it. So another thing that is very similar to estimated and projected is something that I call kind of compartmentalized planning. And that is something that can take form like this. See how all of these things are in just like compartments? They're in sectioned off parts of the pages. So this compartmentalized planning, and it doesn't have to be like clouds like I've done it. It could be blocks. Like, you can literally just like section it off more in a graphic sort of way instead of like organic elements the way that I did to make this look like clouds. But the great thing about compartmentalized planning is it allows for very brief sort of planning. So like bulleted lists, it's great for DIY planning. Like, this is clearly very DIY. And it's also great for tasks and to-do lists because you kind of plan as you go. It's also great for multitasking and just multi-area kind of planning. What I mean by multi-area is if you're doing project management or you're trying to manage multiple people's schedules, something like this could really work, just because then you could have, like, instead of this saying stamping or functional planning, you could say this is for home, this is for work, this is for one kid's schedule, this is for your spouse's schedule, this is for veterinarian or like animal pet planning. I mean, doing compartmentalized planning, and that's basically just like a more structured sort of an estimated projected, so like a more structured sort of a to-do list, or having a to-do list right alongside a different sort of a list. That's what I refer to as kind of compartmentalized planning. So compartmentalized planning can be really great because it allows for a lot of DIY kind of options, so it's not as expensive. You just need a standard sort of a notebook or something, and you can also do a lot of multitasking, and it's relatively easy to get a good visual read. So then there's the other thing of, what if you have so many kind of compartmentalized kind of planning elements that you find that they won't fit on one double page spread or even just like within just a whole planner? So you want to maybe do using multiple planners. Using multiple planners, there's a lot of people who use multiple planners. I use multiple planners, and it's not hard to do, but it can be frustrating to do, because the way that I found is most successful for using multiple planners is your planners should form a sort of a system and be connected using something called universal language. And that basically means what you do in one planner, how you document information, how you write things down, that should have some connectivity to other planners that you do. So you should have like one certain language that you kind of establish, whether it is color coding or using the same sorts of stickers. So if you use a personal planner, you would use stickers the same way in your personal planner as you do in like your desk size planner. Or using symbols. it's just a good idea for you, just within your own planning and across your planners, to have your planners be able to be things that can talk to one another like a system. It's kind of like syncing up your planners is another way to think about it. So that is one really, really helpful thing that I found when I have used multiple planners. Another thing of using multiple planners is that planners can tend to build up and become very massive and very heavy, and so what you can always do is you can have a stay-at-home sort of a planner, like a desk-sized planner. I've seen people use the Happy Planner or Erin Condren type planners, or just a letter-sized planner. So this is not a letter size. This is more like, this is pretty close to like, the Happy Planner size, but just like a half letter size. So they have an on-the-go one where it might be a personal size, like a Kate Spade agenda or an LV agenda or a Giglio, or like I like to use a personal size Filofax or even a Kiki K. So you can have two different planners, but so long as you are connecting them using a universal language sort of a way, just across the two, then it'll make it easier to use the multiple planners. So then you can have what's called like maybe like a macro view and a micro view of your overall plans. And that basically means like a big picture view and then a more detailed view. And what I've seen people do is I've seen people use their larger planner as a more detailed view of what their plans are, and then they'll use their on-the-go planner so that's like a smaller planner, as something that's strictly for scheduling or strictly for like list making or just on-the-go purposes, like where you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to accomplish things, like just kind of list style. Let's see here. It can be very pricey, of course, to have more than one planner, just because you might end up using kind of 1.5 or twice or even 3 times the amount of planner stickers and other materials and pens and things. Like you want to have, you might want to have one of the same pen across both planners. So I know that for me, I tend to kind of fall in love with certain products and brands and things. Like I'm very brand loyal to things. When I find something I like, I stick with it. And so that it can be pricey to have more than one planner, because I will end up buying like double or triple and then having that across all the planners. The other thing about using multiple planners is if you don't use universal language, jumping between more than 2 planners can really make it hard to remember where things actually are. And that can kind of be a little bit counterintuitive to even having a planner to begin with. I found that 2 is a little bit of like the magic number for me if I'm using multiple planners. I use things for project planning, which I don't necessarily consider to be like a planner. When I think of using multiple planners, I think more it has to do with like sectioning off time or just managing logistical tasks and things. And so I have like a personal size, and then I have like, a larger size one. And but I find that when I use more than one, my plans start kind of falling apart, and the system that I try to build with all the planners together, it just doesn't work, because I actually can't remember things, because I will remember writing things down, but then I won't be able to recall where I wrote them down. So some people can use more than one planner because they treat planners like journals, and just like writing kind of notepads and things, but that's not necessarily how I do it, so that's just my personal preference. There's another way that you can do planning, which is focusing more on scheduling and just kind of time tracking. And this can be very interesting, or at least I think it's really interesting, because I used to work in behavioral and clinical psychology, so I'm used to doing like data collection and stuff, and I will even kind of like do it for myself, I guess you could say. But it can be interesting doing scheduling and time tracking, because what you can do is, and ways that you can do it is by using like an hourly schedule sort of a layout, or doing something called a spirodex. And that is shaped a little bit like a spiral. It's very graphic, and what it can do is it can just kind of show you pockets of time that are used or are unused, and it can also visually show you how those certain pockets of time were used. So then you can kind of do a little bit of analysis on yourself with the data that you collect, in order to discover like what time was invested in a wise sort of a way, and what time was invested maybe in a way that you are realizing upon your evaluation that like you I don't know, you don't want to do that. So scheduling and time tracking can be very, very tedious, and it requires a lot of attention to detail. I like attention to detail because, like I said, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to like data and things like that, but research. So just the requirement of the documentation, it can start to feel like a chore, but if you like that sort of thing, then maybe this would be kind of fun for you. So it can also have a little bit of a feel of it being like just very dry, feeling like just data collection on yourself. I don't know, like I said, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I don't mind that sort of thing, but that's like, you know, another approach. And then this one here, decorative planning, and this is more of like memory planning, or I've seen people here online do kind of like, let's see here, like flashback planning or rewind planning is what I've seen it or heard of it called, where basically you go through the week and you retrospectively fill in, or even retrospectively, like you just go back and you fill in what happened during the week as a little bit of a documentation of what happened that week. It definitely feels like creating because it's very much like scrapbooking, but it does require real dedicated time and space for you to be able to do it because it's a lot closer to like a hobby, kind of like doing scrapbooking. So it has great potential to be very expensive because you end up falling kind of down that slippery slope of wanting, you know, more washi tape and scrapbook-like stuff and stickers and ephemera and all that stuff. If you've ever gone into like an arts and crafts store, that can be very expensive. But you know, if you have friends that are into scrapbooking, then maybe you can do kind of swaps of materials and you know, introduce them to planning as much as they'll kind of open you up to even more techniques and fun things for scrapbooking. So because of all this stuff, the washi tape, the scrapbook-like stuff, and the stickers and ephemera, you know, it can require a lot of dedicated time and space for you to do what you're wanting to do for decorative planning, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing, especially if you like planning as a hobby. There's also a sharp learning curve, which can be expensive, meaning you might go out and get a whole lot of different materials and tools and things trying to do something of decorative planning, and because you have in your mind a way that you want your planner page to look and it doesn't necessarily come out that way, that can be expensive because you can kind of set yourself up for disappointment and then feel like you wasted materials in ways that like you didn't necessarily want to because you just didn't like the way that a page turned out. But just like with like any of the other things, if you stick with it and you just try and like ride that wave of the learning curve, then it'll be fine. It just practice makes perfect, and you know, you'll find your groove and get to the point where you're really enjoying it, whether you're doing decorative planning or even if you start to evolve kind of into a different direction and you start doing functional planning or compartmentalized or using multiple planners. I mean, all of these things can be done, you know, in a way that is harmonious and balanced, so you don't have to worry that you have to pick one way. That's just not how it is. There's also something called biweekly planning, and that's where I put 2 for 2, and it's because if this were biweekly planning, that would mean that you could see 1 week on one page and 1 week on another page. So it's basically planning across 2 different weeks. And a really great benefit about biweekly planning is that it's very concise and brief and very functional. And you can get a big picture view of a half of a month or 2 weeks at a time, which is really great for forward planning, meaning I know for me, if I have just a lot going on in a schedule, it's very helpful for me to be able to have 1 week right next to another week. So then I can kind of see what happened last week in order to inform the planning that I do on like the week that I'm in. Or I can, you know, start out here and then I can write things ahead of time in the plans that are just like right there beside my weekly planning. So that's why bi-weekly planning, so that means planning with 2 weeks that you can see at a time, is really great. A drawback of bi-weekly planning is that since you have 2 weeks at a time, typically the space for like your days for weekly planning are smaller, so you have to be a lot more concise and brief, and it can look very, very functional. You also need to use like much smaller stickers, so you end up with less planner page real estate since you are dealing with 2 weeks at a time instead of having just like a much bigger picture view of just 1 week. So that is a drawback for biweekly planning, but I've designed biweekly pages for myself in actually all different sizes, personal and letter and A5 size, and I found in the past that biweekly planning is great for me. It's not really great for me now, and just kind of like where my life and how my life and work life is right now, but if I end up having a much busier schedule, or if I have to start managing more than one schedule, like my husband is in the process of establishing himself in his own kind of like catering kind of endeavors and things, and I'm probably going to be helping him to do scheduling and stuff like that, or just kind of keeping track of that kind of thing, helping him out as he helps me out too. I don't know, I might have to switch to a bi-weekly sort of a setup, we'll see. So that is just a real cursory, and I'm sorry if I rushed through any of this. I'll try and show you examples of these things if I can, and maybe I'll do it just like bullet journal style too. So that's it for the whole, like, how do you plan sort of, I guess, daily video this is. So thanks so much for watching it. Thanks so much for watching the daily video today, and I hope the information that I offered to you was helpful. And if you have any questions whatsoever about anything that I shared, please absolutely leave them in the comments below. The comments part of any of the videos that I have are honestly my favorite part of the videos that I do, just because I consider it to be kind of ongoing discussion and great interaction to be able to have, and I've learned a great deal about planning just from the comments from people who've shared information that they have that's, I didn't even know about, and just being able to connect with people over a mutual appreciation and love and like nerding out on stationery and kind of planner stuff. So please leave any comments or questions in the comment section below, and I thank you so much for offering me your time, for bearing with me since this video kind of went up a little bit late, and that's it for the daily video for today, and I will see you in the next daily video. Bye!